Hello, welcome to this small discussion about the assignment you're going to do next, or maybe it's one that's coming up for you. Anyway, this assignment is called Establish Effective Workplace Relationships. The BSB code is BSBWOR401A. So this is a unit that appears in most diploma courses as well as Certificate 4 courses because it actually explores things that some of the other units at diploma level don't, such as personality traits, conflict resolution, things like that. Anyway, I hope you're looking forward to doing this. It's a pretty personal sort of assessment, I guess, so you get to talk about yourself a little bit, talk about how you might improve some relationships and also some conflict that you may or may not have been involved with in the recent past. Anyway, so shall we go through it now? It's split into 4 parts, I think. First part, Part A, is to do with developing trust and confidence. So you're asked here to briefly describe what behaviours you demonstrate that you believe contribute to achieving the trust and confidence of your team members or colleagues or manager. So just some of your behaviours that contribute to that. So when we're looking at this section, you might want to refer back to the notes and through the workshop. We talked about the 3 aspects of trust, which was character, critique and competence. So remember, competence is how well you do things. People respect you because of that. Character is to do with honesty, integrity, openness, those sort of things. And critique is about celebrating diversity, keeping confidences, not talking behind people's backs, things like that. So if you use those sort of 3 things as a guide, but you can come up with more, of course. There's that wonderful acronym we all know about, which is called FOCM. So fairness, openness, consistency, honesty, educated responses and mutual respect. So that's another one you might want to refer back to, or at least remember it in your head. So a few ideas there for what things that you think you do that demonstrate trust and confidence of other people. And remember when we looked at the workshop materials, I think it said we trust people who trust others. So maybe if you're trusting of others, then that sort of breeds that sort of trust amongst the people you work with. So moving on to 2 then. Provide at least 3 examples of responses you have had from team members, colleagues or manager that demonstrate you have succeeded in gaining their trust and confidence. So firstly, you're telling us about what traits and things that you do that might develop trust. Now you're actually asked us to come up with 3 examples. They don't have to be big things. So if someone comes to you and shares a confidence, that's pretty trusting. Or they come to you for advice and you're listening. They tell you you're a great listener, that sort of thing. That's showing great trust. So anything to do with work, and maybe those 3 things again, competence, character and critique. If you can find examples that sort of fit with those. And then the last one in that one is describe how you would or do encourage others to appreciate cultural and social diversity. So there is a bit of diversity consideration in this unit, I suppose. So this is one place where you look at that. There's another place later on where we can look at it too. So cultural and social diversity. So social diversity could be socioeconomic groupings, dealing with people who are less fortunate than ourselves, that sort of stuff. And cultural, obviously, people who are from different cultures, different ethnic backgrounds, and of course all the other things to do with discrimination fit in there too. So a little checklist, if you like, of what you do or could do to encourage other people to be more aware of these cultural and social issues. Okay, so we'll move on to Part B now. So this is about managing relationships and difficulties. You're actually going to be asked to look at 2 relationships that you have at work, or at least in a work context, that are important to you for you to do your job effectively. So we're going to find 2 relationships. And if you turn over to page 6 and page 7, you'll find there's some rating sheets there, one for each person. You're not encouraged to share these with the other person, by the way. This is your own personal judgment. If you're open enough to their relationship, sure, you could do that, but it's not the usual thing. So pretty straightforward here. The title of the position, the relationship that person has to you in your job, and then these criteria we're asking you to rate between 1 and 7, 7 being very, very good, and one being unsatisfactory, so somewhere between those two extremes. So you look at one about openness, one about verbal communication. You can read how these are described at each section here. Dealing with disagreements and grievances, timing and frequency of communication, trust, that's that feeling of trust that's between you, willingness to listen, and written communication. So there's a reasonable checklist there to rate a relationship with. If you're very, very busy people but you get on quite well, you might be high on most of the trusting things but a bit lower on the communication things because you don't have time for that. Who knows? But it could be any areas that have strengths and weaknesses, I guess. So we're looking for you then to think about, okay, could I improve this relationship or these two relationships, and come up with some ideas, some strategies to actually improve them. And we're going to do this, hopefully, using the workshop sort of materials, the concepts within this unit. So if we need to work on trust, then we need to think about, okay, we might need to talk to these people a little bit more, maybe adjust to their personality style, so that we're not activating their fears when we talk to them, but maybe activating their needs, so they're going to appreciate that. And maybe we'll make more assertive statements instead of not saying how we're feeling. We might make an assertive statement, see how that changes things. It might even be something as simple as I'll agree to meet this person once every fortnight or something, just so that you can clarify the communication that takes place. You can be inventive there about what things you can think of, and they don't have to be big things, but we need to put them into place. So in D here in part 1, it's saying be self-critical about your own contribution to the relationships. So if you want to use the Fockham model, am I displaying all those Fockham characteristics, including the educated responses? So do I know a bit about conflict resolution? Do I know a bit about assertiveness? Do I know a bit about personality quadrants now? Can I actually make a bit of an assessment where someone's coming from and treat them the way that they would more appreciate being treated? So a few of those things. So we're looking for the things that you can do that will influence the relationship rather than blaming the other person for the shortcomings. And that might be still true, but we're taking responsibility here. It's a personal thing for us to try and improve the relationship. We're not going to necessarily say it's all their fault. But possibly it is, but we're not going to say that. We're going to try and improve it from what we can do. Draw up an action plan, which is over on the next page. There's a bit of a template there, for how you'll put these improvement strategies into practice over the course of about a month. And of course the assignment date, I think the due date was the 26th of July, so you've actually got longer than that. Comment on any change as occurred. So hopefully there's been some change. If there's been no change or you've decided to go on a different tack, then that'd be good. Let me know in those comments. And then you can use the attached template. Once you've got an electronic format, you could use that. But it's a fairly straightforward table. No doubt you could just make up your own too. Okay, so that's that part. That's probably the crux of the unit, really. If a couple of relationships improve for you at work, you get more satisfaction from them and you enjoy work more, what can be better? And this assignment's going to help you do that. So let's go on to number 2 in this. Analyse and report on an interpersonal problem or conflict situation that you have observed in your workplace. So we need to think about, okay, has there been a blow-up? Has there been someone who's walked out or refused to do something, or there's just been ongoing tension? Then I need you to think about that. It doesn't have to involve you, but it's obviously easier if it does. But then you've got to be self-critical though, so that's not so easy. But we're looking at the things that may have contributed to that. So we're going to ask you to draw up a conflict map. So that's provided in the notes. We did a short exercise on that during the workshop. So remember, we're just placing the issue. What is the issue at the centre of the map? In other words, the big circle. And we place the people who are involved around that on the circle and putting down their needs and concerns or fears. So they could be organisational type needs and fears, or they could be personal, like personality related needs and fears. So like a direct person needs to challenge authority and needs to get results. So they would be their needs, and their fears might be having people challenge their authority, that sort of thing. So the things that you found from the DISC model that we had a look at, and which are also contained in the notes. So you're asked to do that. Hopefully this will help you highlight the cause of the conflict, and maybe you can see how a better solution might have been found in that situation. It also asks you to list any latent issues. So what we mean by latent issues, so whether there's things that have happened in the past between these people or from other factors that may have contributed to the way they act or feel in the position they're in. So that could be someone was passed over from a promotion or something like that, or someone got to do a project that the other person thought they should have done in the past. All these things could have an impact. Then, so part C, how do you believe the people involved, including yourself if applicable, so if you were involved, could have handled the situation more effectively? Make reference to collaborative problem solving, big part of the unit, interpersonal and negotiation skills, once again another big part of the unit, and the effects of personality attributes, if these have been part of your analysis or resolution of the conflict. So in other words, bring in some of the concepts from the notes and what's in the workshop, and obviously what's in this standard. So hopefully that'll be a good thing that you would have just done, and you're going to tell me about it, and I get to share in their success. Obviously it's completely confidential. I don't share what you've said with anybody else. So feel free to be open about these things. So part C then, now we're looking at communication processes and negotiation. I'm on page 9 now. So discuss the following processes within your organisation and recommend any improvements that could be made. So there's usually room for improvement, so I hope you can come up with one or two things. So the first one is about consultation processes with your team, within your organisation, and with other stakeholders. So what is the consultation? In other words, are we trying to collaborate solutions, win-win type things? Do people get a say? Do they feel like they've had a chance to be consulted? Or is it just, here's the draft, if you've got any concerns, let me know? Is that consultation? Well, it might be, but in my view, it's probably not the best. So just think about those consultation processes, and beyond just your team, but also the rest of the organisation and the people that that organisation serves, so which we might call customers, clients, or even students if you work in a school, that sort of thing. Okay, the next sub-point there is communication channels. Didn't talk a lot about channels within the workshop, but they are in the notes. So what channels do we use to communicate? So email, newsletters, face-to-face, social media, all those sort of things. So what channels are available for team communication, and also how that is channeled like amongst different levels within the organisation, such as the secretary of the department or the CEO, down to whatever the other categories at the bottom of the hierarchy are. Doesn't mean their jobs are any less important, but does everyone get access to information? Are the channels used the correct ones? So such as for the Department of Information, the Department of Education, that info stream, that sort of thing. You can comment about how effective that is. I mean, it obviously gets to everybody, but you might want to comment about how effective that is. The intranet for other people, what newsletters come out, email trails, all those sort of things. What channels are used, and are they used effectively? So the next one I'm going to move on to are the strategies to eliminate discrimination and bias. So are the strategies in place to do that? So with selecting people for jobs, there should be selection on merit, that sort of stuff. There could be training days for contact officers. Do you have contact officers within your organisation? There could be training days to do with harassment and bullying, diversity, all those sort of things. So what strategies are there to eliminate discrimination and bias? And the next one, strategies to collect and analyse information in order to improve work performance. So this would be at an individual level, but also at a team level. So the PDP process, or the performance appraisal process in your work, that might be a tool that would look at this. But we might sort of collect data across the organisation and from teams as well to compare productivity rates or income rates, sales rates, all that sort of stuff. So it's just to look at that side of things. And then the last one in this one as a dot point is the conflict resolution procedures. So are the well-known, used conflict resolution procedures, or is it a bit ad hoc? So you're asked to make some comments about all of those. Even if they're informal processes, please comment on them. Just because they're informal doesn't mean they're not effective. But if you've got formal processes, then it's obviously easy just to find them and make a comment. But I want to see how they work in practice as well. So let's move on to negotiation. So in this case, describe a negotiation process that you've been involved with in a business relationship context. So it's something to do with work then. This could be negotiating a contract, a service agreement, pay rise, leave, change of hours, individual flexibility arrangement, something like that. Something where you've had to actually negotiate an outcome. Doesn't have to be a big thing again, but where you've been involved in negotiation. So fully describe the process with the timelines and outcomes. So when did you start this process? How did it go? Did you get a setback? Was it achieved over a couple of days, within a couple of hours, or did it take a few weeks? That sort of thing. And then recommend any changes you would like to have done to improve the process or the outcome for you. So in other words, we need to think about what is negotiation. Look at the process that we talked about in the workshop, or at least they're in the workshop notes, and the big emphasis on preparation, as you might remember. Prepare, 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 I think one of the handouts we had said. But yeah, the stages of negotiation, see whether you can recognise whether you went through those stages and how you might have done it differently or even done it better. And then the last dot point there is describe, excuse me, how you would implement these changes in future negotiations. So if you had to do it again or something else is coming up, would you do that negotiation a little bit more effectively? Okay, fair enough. We're 3/4 of the way there now. Well, this last task's not a very big one, but part D is called networking. So we looked at networking before in the work priorities unit. We're looking at networking then, though, as a professional development activity so we can learn things. That's still quite true and quite a really good reason to do it. But this one's also about establishing a greater business network for yourself in order to further your career or find out more information about things or improve your knowledge base, and even relationships that you can rely on later on to find out new job opportunities and things like that. So it's a little bit beyond just professional development. So you have to think of 3 networking strategies. So what are networking strategies? It could be that you actually have a planned list of people that you're going to contact because you want these people in your network. That's probably less usual, but some people do that. They target various organisations and individuals because they want to have access to that information and they believe they can be a benefit to those groups as well, of course. Because networking is a shared thing, it's not a one-way thing. We can gather information, but we can also give information, and hopefully some wisdom if we're old like me. So 3 different strategies. One other one could be going to conferences or seminars, attending forums on the internet, webinars as they're called, just reading not professional reading, that's not networking, is it? Sorry. But anything to do with social media platforms such as LinkedIn, which is meant to be a business networking platform. You can have a look at that, LinkedIn. There's job opportunities come through that as well. And obviously going to meetings, being part of unions or other groups, they're all networking strategies. So come up with 3 that suit you. Describe the advantages and possible disadvantages of each of these strategies, each of these networking strategies. So, okay, is it going to be cheap? Is it easy to access? Doesn't take much time. They're all advantages. Or obviously the opposite things. Is it too expensive? Does it take a lot of time to have to travel? That sort of stuff. But also the value of the information you might get from the networks. Discuss the benefits for you and the organisation. So not just you here, it's the organisation too, because every time you go somewhere, whether it's to a workshop, you're online discussing things, if people know where you work, you're actually representing that organisation, and people form a view about that organisation because of the way you behave. So we need benefits for you and the organisation. Mostly they're the same, but you might think of a few different things. And then the last point for each of these 3 things, Identify any cultural, social or equity barriers that may be associated with each strategy. That could be for you or others, and recommend ways to overcome these barriers. So if you have to go somewhere and travel, someone who hasn't got a car or can't because of a brain injury or whatever reason they can't drive or they can't carpool, then that's a barrier, isn't it? It's very difficult to be part of something where you have to travel. If you need the internet, that could be a barrier for people who don't have that literacy or don't have the money to buy a computer or whatever, or use the facilities here. So there could be all sorts of things like that. People that don't have English as a first language, obviously that's a barrier if everything's presented only in English. People have trouble reading and writing, that's a barrier too. People who from Aboriginal culture have been, I guess, discriminated against ever since we came here. And when I say we, not me personally, but white people. So there's all sorts of barriers for people from that culture. And you might want to think about some others as well. So I just need a little bit there about those barriers and how possibly we can help people to overcome them. So that's it. It doesn't seem like a lot of work, does it? No, well, it is a bit of work, I guess. And it can't be done in less than a month, because we need you to come up with those plans for the relationship and put them into practice and see how it worked out, so you can tell me about it in the comments section or a separate report as to how that worked out, or what ongoing strategies you might have for the future for that. Anyway, I hope you see it's a unit of value. I hope you get a bit of enjoyment out of this, and as I say, the due date is the 26th of July, so I look forward to seeing everything before then. That would be great. Thanks a lot. Cheers.